Okay, it's kind of real simple. I'm just going to give a theory. I'm going to move this over here so I can just see better. Um, Everybody wonders what's going on in the world and how it's nonsensical. And, I'm just like to be a good analytical thinker and put puzzle pieces together. It's like a simple explanation for everybody. So I've made some other videos or prophetic videos, but this one, I think that maybe people might be able to see the connections if I explain it this way. So it's going to take a little patience to listen to me. But if you look at history, so first off, I'm going to go to how many temples were built on the Temple Mount? How many buildings? 3. So the third temple was already built by King Herod the Great, started it. So let's go. Solomon's temple, the temple where Cyrus the Great, whatever, let them go and they built the second temple. Then King Herod comes in and he wants to build a grand, gigantic temple. So he builds another temple, but he leaves the second temple up because they still have to do their sacrifices because it took 40 years to complete. So he leaves it up until he builds the third temple. And then he tears it down completely, every stone. So there were 3 temples on the Temple Mount. So we know that the prophecy is for the Messiah, Jesus, to come. Well, the third temple was built. Well, there's 3 temples built there. But today they're telling us that that's a remodel. It's a completely different building. And he tore the whole second building down and threw it away when he was done with the new temple he built. So no matter how you look at it, that's 3 temples, not 2. But that's Jewish tradition, that it's a continuation of the second temple or a remodel. The only building in the whole world, of the history of the world, that's considered a remodel, when you tear down the whole building and put a new one there. And you'll hear different explanations, but you can go in the Bible. And the interesting thing about King Herod was he was half Edomite. So in BC 125 BCE, the Judeans defeated the Edomites. So the Edomites were incorporated into the Judeans. They became Jews. And even circumcised the grown men and everything and married into them. That's how King Herod is half Edomite. And so the king, Herod, even though the Romans left their king, let them have their king, he was the one who appointed the Pharisees and the priests, high priests, and all of them. That was King Herod. So obviously, he's going to pick people who are non-religious, because Herod was a non-religious Jew. He was an half Edomite, and he didn't follow kosher or anything like that. He would be, in today's wording, a secular Jew. He believes there is a God, but he doesn't believe anything he has. You don't have to follow anything he says. So King Herod does some interesting things because he knew the prophecy. So he goes to Bethlehem and kills all the boys under 2 after the Magi come and tell him that the Messiah is going to be born and they're following the star or whatever. He goes because he doesn't want the Messiah to come, because he doesn't want to lose his power, the Edomite king. Okay? And it's funny because the Jews of today call us the Edomites Christians and Romans. And their reasoning behind that is that the Romans wore red capes and Esau had red hair. And if you don't know Bible, I'm not going to explain all that to you, but it's stupid. And that the Romans created the Christians, which they didn't, but they did start the Catholic Church. But, what says today is in Rome, the Vatican, I should say, not the Catholic Church, the Vatican, and made it the religion of Italy, of the Roman Empire. And it's just odd that when Jesus came, the ones who didn't like Jesus were the Pharisees and the priests that Herod appointed. and he was calling them evil and like their father Satan kind of thing, murderers from the beginning and liars. And that's because they were probably, I'm just guessing here, a lot of them were part Edomite and, well, were along those lines appointed by Herod. So now we have a problem here. If the third temple was built and the Messiah came, then the Jews killed the Messiah, or the Edomite Jews killed the Messiah. The secular Jews killed the Messiah. I can just put it that way, because they're the non-practicing Jews. You know, they didn't follow any of the Jewish things, kosher or anything like that. They didn't believe they had to follow God. So it was the same thing with the Pharisees. Jesus pointed it out to them very clearly. You just like your places of title and power, and kind of do as I say, not as I do, and power and money. And so after that, we kind of established where the Edomites were and the secular Jews, and who was in control of Israel at that time, besides the Romans. But the Romans had this way of letting the people run their own stuff as long as they paid their tax and whatever rules they had for them. They kind of left their societies alone. It's just partly why the Roman Empire was very successful. They didn't destroy everything and bomb the whole city and kill every single person. That wasn't the Roman way. That's the Edomite way, or the Judean way. It's like kill everybody. So I want to move to modern times a little bit more up to the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution was financed by secular Jews, like Herod. They believe there's a God, but I don't have to listen to anything he says. Was that in the Garden of Eden too? You be gods. So just realistically, and I'm trying to be as simple as possible and not like a theologian or whatever. If you don't follow God, but you believe there's a God, it's kind of odd that they believe, well, he promised me this land, because I believe anything he has to say, but that's okay. I'm going to go back to the Bolsheviks. So the people who financed the Bolshevik Revolution were secular Jews, Schiff and the Rothschilds and such families in power that create money and have money. And they paid, and according to Putin, 85% of the Soviet Union leadership government was secular Jew. Coincidental. But what's more important is what the secular Jews did in the Bolshevik Revolution. First thing they did is they passed anti-Semite laws. That's pretty interesting, because they were murdering religious Jews and blowing up synagogues. In fact, they blew up all the churches and all the synagogues, or repurposed them. They erased God from Russia. They made it an atheistic state. So their goal was to erase God from Russia. And they wanted to spread through the world. The problem they had was there was too many people and too much corruption, underground church and stuff. They couldn't control it. So they set their eyes on a new shining light. They said, well, if we really need to stop God from being on the planet, we need to attack the Holy Land. So they started bringing Jewish people over there who believed in Torah Jews. That's where most of the Jews were back when they started bringing them over there, and giving them everything: interest-free money, free housing, free land, free medical, free everything. We pay for it. We're their slaves. We pay for everything for Israelis to live wonderful lives while we toil. So I just thought, gee, that's pretty interesting, because who controls and financed Israel? Secular Jews. And who controls it? Secular Jews. In fact, up to 45% of Israel is secular Jews. There's another 12 or 15% that calls themselves atheistic Jews. I thought that's kind of odd. Then there are a lot that don't identify. They say non-religious. And then there's like 10% or something that are Torah Jews. So over the 130 years or so of Jews moving to Palestine, they started what you would call indoctrination of these new ideologies of the promised land. So stewards of the world means you protect people, kind of like what Jesus was teaching, feed a servant. The washing of the feet is a symbolic example of Jesus showing that he's a servant. And but you're to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, give housing to the poor, visit the prisoner, heal the sick. He's telling you how to be a human and how to get along with other humans. But that's not what they want everybody to be. They want to be the leaders. So they've changed the meaning into stewards of the world, into chosen people, into sort of gods. And we can gear animals lesser than us, which is like a semi-god, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So now we have this conflict going on over there in the Middle East. So what is the end game? What are they looking to accomplish? Well, you'd have to be pretty stupid not to think it's the same secular Jews who financed the Bolshevik Revolution, meaning the same type of people and belief system, and the ones who are in control of Israel, that they don't have the same goals in mind. Erase God from the world. And what better place than the Holy Land? So if you take the Holy Land and you destroy it, then you erase God. So Jesus is supposed to come back at the Mount of Olives. He's supposed to descend where he ascended from. Well, if you destroy that area, like by nuclear weapons, then they think they're stopping the Messiah from coming. So let me just give you a scenario. They nuke Iran, whether it's the United States or Israel, and that sets off a series of events. Obviously, Pakistan and Russia and China are not going to be happy with the radioactive fallout from the nuclear attack. And I'm sure some of the other Middle Eastern nations are not going to be happy either. And there'll be retaliatory strikes to Israel, which is planned, because they need to destroy the Holy Land. They need to erase God where his prophets walked, everything, and stop Jesus from returning. Just like Herod killed all the 2-year-old babies and under boys to stop the Messiah. And that Christianity has been the number one enemy of the Jews throughout history. I look at it, when I see the retaliation coming back, Israel has this thing called the Samson option. And we already know they have no problem with killing their own people for their own greedy needs of taking property, like they did on October 7th with the Hannibal Directive and the call down or the holding back of their soldiers to help the Palestinians. So, they don't have any problem. So all those Jews were brought over there and brainwashed into this new ideology over 6 generations to believe this new type of Judaism political movement, like not really sure what it is. And of course, they have anti-Semite laws. The Bolsheviks did that. Why would they do that when they were killing Jews in Russia? Religious Jews. Well, that's protection for them. If you keep the title Jew in your name, you get to be called an anti-Semite, and then you fall under the anti-Semite laws that they enacted, which is the same thing they're doing today. So the secular Jews don't practice the religion only when it's convenient to them. They keep the Jew title on there so that they're protected under anti-Semite laws. It's like the same exact thing. It's a little puzzling to me. So I'm going to kind of just lay this out real simple, because once they attack Iran nuclear, and the nuclear retaliation will come back to Israel, and the Samson option is released, and the whole Middle East will become uninhabitable, then the whole world will go into hunger, starvation, civil unrest, which has already happened, more pathogens, magical floods and earthquakes that come out of nowhere, and tsunamis, and people killing and fighting each other, frequencies all over the place, wars, until finally there's so many people dead that the living envy the dead. And then they'll come and they'll tell you, we can save you because they've been hiding underground. All you have to do is take this chip or whatever tattoo mark and live in our 15-minute open door prisons, kind of like the Hunger Games sectors, or what's that other movie, In Time? I like that one better because they can shut you off if they don't like you, kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know what they're looking to erase God from the world, just as the Soviets did. And that's the same people. So why would you think they have any other goal in mind? They don't believe in God, don't believe in following God. So what is all this nonsense going on? What is this? That they don't believe in God, they don't listen to anything he says. I don't know. It's kind of like the thing with don't mix dairy and meat. Okay, so in Deuteronomy it says not to cook a baby goat, a kid, in its mother's milk, which is a cruel thing to do in a sense. So God said, don't do that. That's not nice, you know. And out of that, in the Talmud, the rabbis decided that means don't mix dairy and meat. Really? When God told them not to eat pork, he kind of said, don't eat pork. I guess if God would have said, don't mix dairy with milk, dairy with milk, oh my goodness, dairy with meat, he could have just said that. Not, don't cook a baby goat in its mother's milk. How do you get that out of that? So this is a changing of and a way to program people into a new belief system. So by isolating themselves in their own communities, they're easier to brainwash and to make up a new faith, like Second Temple, Third Temple. There's 3 temples built on that ground, no matter how you want to count it. 3 separate buildings on the Temple Mount. Third temple's already built, buddy. So the 4th temple, if they want to build one, that would be, and they're bringing it with the sword, killing to get to build it, saying somehow that will force the Messiah to come. That's not the Messiah they're thinking of. That's the Messiah, the Antichrist Messiah, which is what they're looking for. And that's who they're trying to invoke. And we call the Cabal, that's short for Kabbalists. They use magic, black magic, in the Kabbalah. And there's some mysticism in there, but they have a different name of God for everything. Like if they want fortune, money, they pray to a certain name of God. If they want to protect themselves, they have another name of God to pray to. It's almost like they're praying to multiple gods, but they don't call it that. It's the same God, he just used different names for him. Oh, and just interesting enough, Moloch is Hashem, is Master Lord title, and that's what they call Yahweh. That's pretty interesting. The same title as Moloch has, and Baal. And there's another god, idol, and they've always been idol worshippers. That's why God kept punishing them. But I wanted to bring out the point of this whole video is to connect King Herod, being a non-religious Jew, secular, he would be called in today's world, to the secular Jews who took over Russia and created the Soviet Union to erase God, which Herod also tried to erase God, the Messiah, he didn't want him to come, to Israel today, who wants to erase God from the world and use their people as cannon fodder to do it. In Gaza, that was just a test area for how they could enclose a population of people into one area with constant surveillance and whatnot. But they're a little far more advanced now since they started that experiment. What do you think? It's just they're chemtrailing us with heavy metals and poisons. By the way, making clouds in the sky doesn't cool the planet, it heats it. Look it up on Google. Clouds keep heat in, especially metal particulates in the clouds. Think of your car in the sun during the day, and if you touch it in the summer, it burns your hand, it gets hot, the metal. So heavy metals in the sky, they get hot and they radiate heat down. But just regular clouds will heat the planet, cloud cover. So if you cover all of the sky, you're lowering the ceiling, you're keeping the heat in, and you're creating heat. So the whole global warming thing is a complete lie. They're just poisoning you, and they made up some stupid story that doesn't even make sense. And then there's pathogens. Gee, they can also include them in the chemtrails and spray them. I mean, that's why fruit and water and trees on animals in the forest test positive for what they call COVID. But COVID has the same symptoms as heavy metal toxicity, which is what they're spraying in the sky for 30 years. All the wars, starvation after they nuke everything around, oil stops flowing, money goes down, inflation, then shortages of food, and everyone wanting to kill each other, as they taught you to do in the dystopian movies that they've made. There is not one dystopian movie where they don't show people killing each other for food and eating each other. Isn't that what Stalin did? Oh, that's right, yeah. He had the people in Siberia eating each other. He was not sending them any food. Sending new arrivals that came near the people who were still alive, grabbed them, tied them to the trees, and ate them. And he knew it and he didn't care. Secular Jew theology. So you'll see Netanyahu refer to Amalek and that we have to destroy every woman and child. And the Bible story in there is not to repeat. It's like a history lesson. Like, don't do this. Also, Bible revelation is John telling you, for the Christians here, telling you, this is what's going to happen if you continue on your path. Not, it has to happen. Just like in the story of Jonah, you can repent and God will save this city and the people in it. So the commandment to love one another as I have loved you in Jesus, love is the answer. If you give love out, you get love in return. If you give the sword out, you get the sword in return. And you can't cry victim then. So if you're abusing other people and they fight back, you can't cry you're the victim. You're breaking God's commandments. Murder. You're murdering. I think outside of a blessing for everyone, and to pray for peace for this world, and to call out and notice that Herod was a secular Jew, the Bolsheviks were secular Jews, Netanyahu's a secular Jew, and they all have the same agenda: destroy God's world as God is in it. They're just going to blame religion on all the wars and bring in the do as thou wilt, you're your own God religion. We heard that somewhere before, didn't we? Oh, that's kind of secular Jew belief also, that they're kind of gods. But they'll enslave the ones who they want. God bless everyone. And that's just my theory. That's what I see in pattern fitting. It makes sense to me. I'd like some comments if it doesn't make sense to you. If it seems totally absurd, I'd like to hear that. Because I don't know, they're all the same belief system people. Oh, and the child worship stuff. Okay, the child worship thing. Child worship sacrifice, I'm sorry, I got distracted. That was going back on in King Herod's time. And that's why God removed him from Israel for sacrificing children to the idols, babies. And that's going on today. So tell me, they're not the same people, the same beliefs? They believe there's a God, but they don't listen to him. It sounds like the same people to me. And I don't know why anyone would think they have a different agenda, no matter what they tell you, because they're liars. And none of it is sensible. None of it makes any sense. God bless. I talk way more than enough. I really wish peace for the world and for people to wake up. Demons really do control people. They're possessed. A lot of people are possessed. They had an exorcist in the Catholic Church. And those are people who don't want to be possessed. But then there are people who are willingly possessed. Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, your son Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump. Seeing your eyes turn black, Donald Trump. Why? And that demon's strong, isn't he? He gave you everything. Such a powerful guy. No one ever disagrees with you. They're afraid. That must make you feel really powerful. I would do the right thing if I were you, because good souls and bad souls don't go to the same place, no matter what you want to call it. God bless everyone. Take care.